Hi, my name is Lisa White, and I'm the Health Promotion Manager, and to my left is...
Ginette Boudreau. I am the Health Promotion Specialist.
And welcome to...
Table Talk!
This is segment 2, part 2.
Part 2.
Of what bugs you.
What bugs you.
Right?
Part of our interpersonal communication workshop that we offer.
Yeah. And the first segment, we talked about the causes of conflict.
Yeah. And
then we talked about the conflict management styles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Communication styles, yeah.
And now, right now, we're going to talk about communication. So what is communication? We'll go into
the
channels of communication.
Yeah.
What does active listening look like?
Yeah. And
then we'll get into how to raise the issue. And then
there's blocks to communication as well.
Yes, blocks to communication. And the last thing we're going to talk about is...
the interest-based communication model. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, how to have a collaborative conversation.
Yeah.
So what comes to mind when you think of communication?
Passing on information, I guess, from one source to another.
Yep. Being able to express your message in a way that is heard and understood.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And trying to get that message across to the other person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Listening in an attempt to understand the message from the other person.
Right. Yes.
Because a lot of the times when we're communicating, I know I'm guilty of this. Someone is telling me something, but I'm already thinking about what I want to say.
Yeah. And
what we really need to do is slow down conversations and listen to understand the other person. Really good quote by Silken Lawman. I'm trying to find it. It's somewhere. I'll find it later. Where was I? Forget. Seek to understand.
Seek to understand.
Yeah. Channels of communication.
Yes. So there are 3 different types of channels to communication. There is the verbal language. So what I'm doing right now, what we are doing right now, we are talking to you, trying to get information, provide education on ways to communicate, right? Without conflict, escalation.
The words we use.
Yes, the words we use and how it impacts ourselves and other people. And then we have the paralanguage. So the way we say our words, right? To inflect what's going on, what you hear, the speed of our words, the tone, right? I know often I'm always saying your tone is not nice, kind of thing, right? So
how you doing? I'm fine.
Yes, I'm fine. Right?
Wow.
Nothing, right? Like, so the tone can make a big difference, right? When you're trying to talk about something that's difficult. And then we have our body language. So, right? The body language right there. We can tell when people are interested and when they're not, right? When they're looking all over the place and really distracted about what's going on, not getting your full attention, right? Now, mind you, there are some people that need to fidget and do stuff in order to pay attention, right? Not to say that they're not listening, but again, it's up to that individual to communicate with their spouse, with their co-workers that, okay, if you may see me in a meeting, but I'm doodling or pacing, but I'm listening. I just can't sit still.
Oh, that's me.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So to somebody, if somebody was not to communicate that beforehand, their perception may be that they're rude, they're not listening, they're bored. But in fact, it's just they can't sit still. They need to keep themselves occupied for whatever reason. Right?
Yep. There are blocks to communication. So when you're communicating with other people, there are things that shut the other person down that you might be doing that may not facilitate a good conversation. And what's the first one that comes to mind for you?
Minimizing. Right? So when you're starting to bring up a situation and the person or the group of people that you're talking to, oh, it's not that bad. Or, I've been there.
We're not allowed to say that.
Okay. Fine. You said be ourselves.
I don't know.
Okay.
Take 2?
But yeah. But I said that because...
okay. Well,
somebody...
could say that.
Did say it.
So using slang language.
Yes.
Okay. So if someone uses slang language to you that's inappropriate, that could be a block to communication. Okay. I get that now. Yes. Moralizing, criticizing, and judging.
Right.
So
So what something like moralizing and criticizing or judging may sound like is that was bound to happen. What were you thinking? Yeah. Right? If you're going to act like that, if you're going to cross the street with the snowmobile, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah, that was a big one in our family, and that came back to bite us, actually, because now the boys started saying that to us later on in life, really? Especially as teenagers. Yeah. If I did something, then it would say, Mom, what do you think was going to happen? Yeah. It's like that. Yeah. It's amazing how much you role model how you communicate with your kids, right?
And when you say something like that, what do you think is going to happen? What are you doing when you talk like that?
I'm criticizing you.
Criticizing. Right? Kind of like, I told you so. I knew you couldn't do it. Right? So putting that negative judgment before it even happens.
And it's a lack of respect to the other person, right? Yeah. And it causes a defensive reaction a lot of the times too, right?
And we all know that we learn better by our mistakes. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's one thing that, I don't know, to judge before something happens. Right?
You have to be a little bit open-minded, right? Yeah. If someone's feeling judged when you're communicating with them, then they're going to shut down. Yeah. Right? It is a block, right?
It's huge. Yeah. And there's a lot of it going around, right? In today's society.
Another one is, this is the one that Kenny doesn't like. Giving solutions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we just need people to listen to our problems, right? So when we're faced with problems and conflict, sometimes people kind of keep it inside, but it's good to talk about it, right? But sometimes when we talk to people, especially informal resources like our friends and co-workers and our partners, they'll try to solve our problems. It's human nature to want to solve our problems.
Yeah, you want to fix it, right? You want to help, right?
You want to help and fix. But in the grand scheme of things, we should be listening to what they're saying and help them problem solve the problem. Maybe give them a different perspective to look at.
Soundboard.
Yeah. Right? Reflect emotion, paraphrase, and to maybe give it, if we need to, push them to the right resources. If we need to get there, right?
Ask questions.
And ask questions to better understand. And when you ask questions and you paraphrase, then they look at you and say, yes, you are listening to me, right?
Yeah, and if you're giving solution, you're also taking the solution away from the other person. They sometimes need to come up with their solution on their own, right? So if you can soundboard with somebody, reflect emotion, paraphrase, ask them questions, still allow them to come to their own solution, that can be helpful. And also sometimes they just need to talk to you and you just need to listen. Yeah. And you don't need to provide solutions or anything like that, right? Yeah. It can be exhausting for both parties. Yeah. It can be exhausting for the person who just wants to tell you what's going on and what's bothering them, and it can be exhausting for the person who's trying to help and give solutions and they're not getting, it's not being received by the other person. No. They're just getting frustrated.
There's a good video that we play in class. It's called Nail in the Head. Oh yeah. If you have an opportunity, it's on YouTube. Check it out. It's very obvious what the problem is, but there's a block to communication, right? And which is giving a solution. So it's
that person just wants you to recognize that they are worn out, or that they're hurting, or that they're frustrated, or that they're tired. Yeah. They just want you to see that and and point that out, that you see it, and not have those solutions put in front of them, right? Yeah. Another big one is
sympathizing.
Yes.
You know what the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? So sympathy is quite common. We all do it in a sense, and empathy is a skill that we learn, right? Yeah. So not everyone is able to empathize with different situations. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So part of our job is to teach people to be empathetic. Yeah.
It's a skill. Yeah. Here's an example. I am really worried. Big Jonathan from next door is bullying my Hugh. Right? So there's a statement that someone might bring up. This is an example. A sympathetic response would be, yeah, he can be tough. I remember I had this neighbor when I was a kid who was on me constantly. So where's the focus? The focus is on the listener and their experience, not the person who's talking. That's right. So a more empathetic response would be, it must be tough to see that happening to your son. Yeah. How is Hugh coping with that? So therefore, the focus is on the person in conflict and their needs. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, instead of making it about you.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I've seen it shut. People mean well, But it shuts the other person down.
It sure does.
Because you're not listening to them. You're telling them, oh, I remember when I went through this, and the other person doesn't feel validated or heard.
No. They're making it about themselves, right?
There can be an inty-punty-poo little bit of sympathy.
Yeah.
Where would sympathy work, do you think? Like a bit of it?
It's great to show a little bit of sympathy, if I can say it.
Yeah.
Is when you're trying to relate to the person that you had a similar experience.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, if I am an infantry person who's gone overseas, then and you're trying to talk to me about your tour, then we have something in common there versus me as a civilian who's never gone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? That would be... I remember when I've been... Tell me more. It's hard. Right? Like...
Yeah, tell me about your experience.
I've
been there. Tell me about yours.
Yeah.
Right?
Right? So you can bounce back ideas and stuff like that. But...
give some context to relate to. Yeah. Right? And trust. Yeah. Because if you can give a little bit of... Just a tiny bit, then other people can connect with you. And I think... Both of us have had experiences in all the different core program areas, like with nutrition, with physical activity, with addictions, with relationships, with stress, with injury prevention, like exercise, like a whole bunch of the different core areas. So if we can share a little bit of our own experience, we can connect with the audience. Yeah. And you can connect with your family member or your kids, right? When you were younger. Tell me more about your experience in grade 6 or whatever's going on with you when you were in grade 6.
It's true. Right? So, being human, right? Showing the human factor is important. Is important.
You had a really good example that you had with your kids the other day when they were having a hard time getting out of the house, going to school. Yeah. And all your younger daughter needed to hear from you was that you understood that she was having a hard time going to school, and that seemed to settle her down.
It did.
You just had to reflect.
I know you don't want it, like, because she's, let's be honest, with all this flip-flopping back and forth, I hate school. I don't want to go to school. This is what I'm hearing every morning now, right? It's boring. I gotta wear my mask. I can't breathe. I get headaches, right? Teachers are strict, and it's just, but it's, so she was going off and flipping, and I'm like, and this is first thing in the morning, so why are you yelling? It's first thing in the morning. What's going on? Instead of saying, stop yelling, right? What's going on? What's bugging you? And she opened up. Yeah. And I said, that it's hard. I know, honey. And she just kind of melted. And it worked! It worked!
You empathized with her, and she felt validated about that.
It worked with my 8-year-old. Right? Yeah. It worked.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can start installing these tips and techniques and communication styles at a younger age, because I can tell you that I didn't get that growing up.
So if you're actively listening to somebody, what are some of the things that you can let the other person know that you're actively listening to them? What are some things that you would be doing? Right?
Eye contact.
Yes.
Is one.
Yep.
Right. Nodding your head, paraphrasing. So what I'm hearing is, so reflecting what you heard in your own words, in a sense, summarizing.
Doing this.
Yes. Paying attention. Keeping aside any distractions, your phone, computers, desk, removing any barriers if COVID allows, right? Nodding your head, your body language. Reflecting emotion is huge.
Yes, and don't worry about if there are pauses in conversation. It's okay to have a pause that allows the other person to think about what they want to say. Yeah. It also allows you to notice any emotions that might be attached to what they're saying, too, as a listener. Right? People get awkward. They feel like you have to keep talking, but you don't. You can have those quiet pauses and allow those to happen. Right? This is hard, but one of the things they try to get you to do is to control your nervous tapping or moving your hands, or I'm fidgety. In my last video, I could not stop playing with my mask.
I think I just had a balloon that I had to drop down.
Yeah, I do fidget sometimes. So if you can keep your, like...
But again, we're all human.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. So I do this saying yes, or other brief phrases. I was doing it in the last video a lot, yes, and that's okay. Yep, they want you, that means you're hearing them, you're listening to what they're saying. You can get caught up in that, though, if you're not listening, and you're just saying that so the other person just hurries up and finishes.
Right. Like me in the last video when I got lost in my notes. I kind of got confused.
Yup. You were saying yes. What you were.
So I was listening.
Go back and watch that video. If you didn't watch it, just go back because you can look at Ginette's looking at me, and I knew she was kind of lost, but I kept going anyway until she kind of.
She picked up on my body language, saying, "Where are we in my notes?" Oh gosh.
Here's that. Listening is not waiting for your turn to speak. Silken Laman.
It's a quote.
Yes. So some of the active listening skills are empathetic listening.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've talked about that.
Yeah.
It's a principle where you are allowing the person. You are picking out. It's almost in combination with reflecting because you are picking out their emotion.
Yeah.
And you're reflecting it back. That's what you see, or that sounds hard, or sounds to me like you're feeling frustrated. It sounds to me like you're in pain. It sounds to me like you're tired or worried or lonely. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. You're putting a feeling to that emotion.
It must be hard.
Yeah. Right? You're putting a feeling behind it.
It can't be easy what you're going through.
No.
Right?
Sounds frustrating.
Yeah.
Sounds overwhelming.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Sounds scary.
Paraphrasing. You mentioned paraphrasing.
Yeah.
In a couple of sentences, right? We're repeating back to the other person what you've heard. You can put it in your own words.
Yeah.
Or you can use the same words that the other person has used.
Yeah.
Right? What does that tell the other person when you do that?
It tells them that you've listened, that you're understanding what they're saying.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That you understand.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just listening, but you're actually understanding what's being said.
Yeah.
And when somebody feels understood, then it's almost like a whole weight comes off the shoulder.
If I feel understood, I'm more apt to listen to the other person's turn.
Yes.
If I'm not felt like you've understood what I've told you,
yeah.
and I haven't been given enough time to get out what I want to say,
yeah.
It's hard for me to listen to what you want to tell me back. I have to feel understood first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to understand what I'm going through, but you understand what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Right?
Another good quote, I think, is seek to understand before to be understood.
Yes. That's a really good one.
Right?
Yep.
Understand what other people are saying before you blurting out your point of view kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. It also tells them that you're trying. It tells a speaker that you are trying to listen to what they're telling you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially when it's a new skill that you're learning. Right? We're going to make mistakes.
There's a tip in there too. Be careful not to alter the other person's words to suit your meaning. That's a technique of arguing, not listening.
Yes, I think lawyers do that, right?
Or kids.
Parents. I guess we all do it, I guess.
Yeah, we do
when
sometimes.
we really want something.
You have to be careful. So this is what you're saying, what you want to hear, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Summarizing, okay? So
summarizing in your own words, saying what the speaker has said, right, at the end. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, this is what you said, right? Mm-hmm. Right? So then you...
Before we move on to the next part of our conversation, let's summarize what we just talked about to make sure I've captured everything that you said to me. Yeah, and you might have missed something. That way that gives the person a chance to say, what about, I remember I said this. Oh, right, yes, okay, so we've talked about that, and oh, yes, I remember that now. And that you're making sure that you have had ample opportunity to understand and that you've had a chance to bring all those points forward before you move on to the next part of the conversation.
Because some topics can be very... nerve-wracking or upsetting in itself, right? Emotionally charged. So sometimes it can be difficult for somebody to hear what's being said. Mm-hmm. So nerves, emotions come across, right?
Yep.
Which is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But we need to be able to listen, put our own thoughts and values on the shelf, right? If something that is crossing our boundaries or our morals and values. To be able to still actively listen and to validate what they're going through. Yeah.
Reflecting. Similar to being empathetic, emotions play a significant role in the escalation of conflict, whether expressed in words or not. When you name or identify the emotion you hear or observe in nonverbal behaviors, you are reflecting an important component of the message. Yeah. And it signals that you are really listening to that other person. Yeah. And if you can pick out those feelings that the other person might potentially be holding or expressing to you, that can also de-escalate the other person. Yeah. Right? If they're starting to escalate. Yeah. I've always worked in retail. Like I worked at McDonald's, I waitressed, I worked at Cleve's as a second job. So working in retail, you have to de-escalate people a lot. So when they come in and they have the wrong size shoes that you sold them, you can say something, reflect emotion. That must be frustrating, especially when you're trying to get your kids ready for school.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? You know?
And there are so many different types of emotions out there.
Oh my goodness. And you know what?
Just so you know, I know you can't see this, but this page is full.
Yeah.
And when I talk to my husband, for example, what kind of emotions do you have? And he's like angry, sad, happy. And look, we got all those pages. So familiarize yourself with the different types of emotions. Because sometimes naming that emotion to a feeling can relieve some tension and some pressure, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
In a sense, right? To understand it better.
Yeah. Using I statements can also be helpful. Here's a really good example. I like this because military members can relate to this. I hate having to go away to sea for months at a time. I don't know my kids anymore. So you're trying to think, okay, what feelings might be in this person's statement, right? So there could be anger, sadness, desperation. Those might be some of the feelings. And then you're looking at, so what is the issue? So when you're reflecting, you're also picking out the feelings, but you're also trying to pick out what the issue might be as well when you're reflecting. So you can use your I statements to help you pick those out, right? So my reflection back to the other person might be, going away to sea this much makes you angry because it's affecting your relationship with your kids. Is that correct? Right. So I'm trying to pick out the issue is just being away from their kids. And the thing of it is, if you're not getting it right, they will tell you.
Yeah.
Right? They'll say, I'm not angry, I'm lonely, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, right? Okay, so what you're saying here is when you're gone a lot and you're not connecting with your children, you don't feel like you know them anymore, you're feeling sad, disappointed, disconnected from your family.
Yes,
right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then they know that you've heard them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the reflecting. Reflecting takes time. It's because you're trying to really listen to what the issue is and you're trying to get the feelings around it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's in the classroom setting is the one where participants have the most difficult with.
Yeah.
Right? Is naming that emotion when we're looking at reflecting. Right?
And trying to pick out the issue.
Yeah.
Trying to say it back to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you really, in a conversation, you really have to slow down here. Because you want to talk too. But you really got to slow down and get all that information.
Listen first. Seek to understand before to be understood.
Yes.
That's a really good... that one sticks in my brain.
Yeah, I got another one for you, Ginette. I'm really upset about my housing situation. Nobody told me we'd be in this cramped. What do I do? So what do you think some of the feelings might be if I'm really upset about my housing situation and nobody told me we'd be this cramped? What do you think some of the feelings might be in that?
So when I think about it, it sounds like they're frustrated. It sounds like they're maybe they feel like they've been deceived.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Minimized, I guess. Their needs are minimized.
Yeah. So what's the issue here?
The issue is that nobody told them that their unit was this small, that they're going to be this cramped.
Exactly.
They may have all this furniture that they don't have nowhere to put anymore, right? They were whatnot.
So if you think they're frustrated or disappointed, then so we've got the feeling, we know the issue is that they're cramped. Now we have to put that back in a reflective sentence.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you are frustrated because you are not aware of your small quarters.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's pretty much what it was in here. And you're not even on the page, so that's good.
I know. Okay,
no, I know. It's okay. I just found it. I just thought it'd be an interesting example, right, of that. So that's good. And you're not going to be perfect at them either. They take some work, right? They take a little bit of work. And
absolutely.
What's the hardest part for you in communication? And then I'll tell you what mine is.
Bringing up the issue.
That's the same as me. I have a hard time. Yeah. In the last video, I talked to you about I'm a bit of an accommodator.
Yeah.
Most of the time, and I have to work on being more balanced in my conflict management styles. So raising the issue is sometimes very difficult. Yeah. Right?
And the more it stews, the harder it gets. Or the more important it is to you, the more emotion is attached to this issue.
Yeah.
The more it means to you, then the harder it is to raise it without escalating those emotions.
So what would be some tips that we could give the audience about raising the issue? What are some things that we could tell them that would be beneficial if you're going to bring up an issue at home?
So one thing would be make sure that the timing is right for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Right? So just because it works for me doesn't mean it works for Lisa if I have something to talk to her about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She may be preoccupied with whatever it may be. So we need to kind of set a time, bring up the subject that we want to have a conversation, and agree to a time and place.
Yeah. And watch out for filters. HALT.
Yes.
Do you know what HALT stands for?
Oh.
Remember? What does HALT stand for?
Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired.
Yay!
God.
We should play Pictionary. No.
I knew it in the nutrition course, but she's pulling in some nutrition information here.
Yeah. So if the person's hungry, angry, lonely, tired, just getting back from work, if it's the kids there's stuff going on in the family, the dynamics, you have to kind of pick the right time for your kids and with your partner.
Yeah.
Right? Because your kids could be coming home from school and there's something's going on, you got to call from the teacher.
Yeah.
But as they walk in the door, they've already had a stressful day to begin with. Maybe not talking about that issue right when they get in the house may not be the right time for them.
No.
Because they're already emotionally charged coming home from school. That's tired and cranky and whatever else has gone on at school.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
You know, so the timing, you're absolutely right. Timing is everything. There's also something else you want to keep in mind when you're setting time and raising an issue, is you want to set time for that issue. Not a variety of issues. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. If that happens, we should make an agreement to, recognize that this is another issue and set another time for that issue to be talked about.
Yeah.
Or park it. Yeah, park it.
Yeah, park it. So you want to state the situation as you see it.
Yeah.
Right? Focusing on the problem, so you're popping the problem out of the box, not the person, and using a neutral and non-accusatory tone and words when you raise the issue.
Yes.
So, should I use the example that I see?
Sure.
Okay, so here we have, Henry, we need to talk about you never helping out with the kids. That's not the way you want to raise the issue.
Yeah.
Rather, Henry, can we talk about how your work schedule is impacting the family? Right? Yeah. Explain why it is important to you to have this conversation. Okay? It's important for me to have help with the kids.
Yeah.
Okay? Seek agreement on the issues. Invite the other person to work with you to resolve them.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah.
Right? I like to bring up at the beginning of the seasons, if there's chores that we need to do in the winter, can we set a time aside so that we can talk about the chores and how we're going to manage those chores as a couple through the winter?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
You're planning ahead. You're being proactive.
and
in a sense,
if I have an issue with who's doing chores, or if he has an issue with me about winter chores, then we need to be able to put that on the table. Same as what we talked about last segment, where we talked about you having a collaborative conversation with your kids.
Yeah.
Right? If you know it's back to school and schedules are changing and there's chores and everybody's getting busy, we want to come together as a family. We want to raise up an issue to talk about chores and a busy household before back to school.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That can be anything.
Yep. So you're raising up an issue, you want to pick a time to raise it, and then you want to pick a time that you can resolve it, and you may want to set some time, how much time can we spend on this?
Yeah. Because sometimes things can, if you're trying, if you're a collaborator, or things can take a long time, like we talked about in the other segment. Mm-hmm. So if things drag on for too long, then we're not getting anywhere, right? And frustration builds up. Yeah. So, and if emotions are getting escalated, you agree to take a time out. Yeah. Okay. And this is a conversation that you would have before you even have the conversation. If I feel that I'm raising my voice or I'm becoming sharky-like kind of thing, right?
Or turtling away.
Then we're going to stop the conversation because emotions are taking over the conversation.
Because as we escalate in anger, our thinking goes down.
Yeah.
So as our anger goes up, our thinking goes down, and that is when we say and do things that we tend to regret. We get into that crisis phase of anger at its highest, thinking at its lowest, and then we don't recognize the consequences of our behavior and what we're saying to the other person, which can damage the relationship.
And then damages a relationship.
Right? We talked about this. There is an interest-based collaborative communication model, which we're going to give you a few tips about. It's on page 80.
Yeah.
A few tips for you if you're going to have a collaborative conversation, because you've already raised the issue and you want to have a collaborative conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
So,
when opening up a conversation, you want to set some guidelines. Right, like we kind of talked about, agree about what is going to be discussed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some ways that you can set a template is use an acronym called PEACH BFV. Okay. So where you're exploring each other's priorities, expectations, assumptions, concerns, hopes, beliefs, fears, and values, right? So those are all the kind of things that are important to people, to everyone, right? And prioritizing. So you're kind of exploring those as you're opening up a conversation, right?
And you can plan this ahead of time. So as you're getting prepared, you can evaluate your PEACH BFV.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
The acronym right?
PEACH BFV. Yeah.
Yeah. You can look at that. You can prepare for your conversation. You can prepare what you might assume the other person might be feeling or thinking, right? So that you're prepared for those when you go into the conversation.
That's right.
And what kind of guidelines would we set during conversation? Like if we're going to have a conversation, we should set up some ground rules, right, or guidelines. Yeah. So what do you think some of those might be, Ginette?
Well, to be respectful.
Yeah.
Right. Regardless, if we disagree with one another, to stay respectful within the conversation. Right.
Yep. I know when Kenny and I, when we were when all our kids were teenagers, one of the guidelines we set is that I feel like I need to be able to be honest about how I'm feeling about the impact our parenting is having. Yeah. So can we agree that we are able to feel safe in our conversation in sharing how we're feeling about the situation or the issue that we're raising? Yeah. Can we have some patience about how we're feeling?
It's true.
Because if we don't have that patience, it's hard for us to bring up how we're not going to bring that forward if we don't feel safe.
We'll avoid it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we need that respect and that safety.
Yeah.
Right? In bringing those emotions forward and how it's impacting us, right?
Because you're showing your vulnerability in a sense, right?
Like,
nobody wants to talk about it, but we all have to talk about it in a sense, right? If you want to protect your relationship.
Yeah. Sometimes confidentiality comes up.
Yeah.
Because maybe I kind of want to keep this conversation between Kenny and I don't want him going to outside sources sometimes because that can influence him.
Yeah.
Right?
Doesn't have to talk to his friends that's going to say, well, they'll put their input on it, right? And like she said, we'll screw his definition of what's going on, right?
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you can't use resources to help you with issues that you're facing. I might just say to him, I'm going to share some things that are personal to me, and I would hope that you could keep those to you. Yeah. I understand that if you need to speak to other people for resources or whatever, but for what I'm going to tell you, I'd like it to stay between the two of us. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And like you had said earlier, can we agree that if things are escalating, like this is your guideline, that we can take a timeout or a break or a pause? Yeah. Right? We just have to agree that we come back.
Yes. When both parties or all parties have been de-escalated. If one party comes back and they're still in escalation, then your timeout is not long enough. Right?
Yep. And you had already mentioned, agree what we're going to talk about. Can we just stay on this one?
Yes.
There might be multiple things you need to talk about, but it can be exhausting, right?
Yeah.
So agree to talk about that.
Yeah.
Number 2, identifying interests.
Identifying interests. So this is kind of where you're using your empathic listening, right? So often we all know this is kind of where we use our iceberg model here in class.
Yeah.
Right? So the tip of the iceberg, what floats above the water, is what everyone sees in society. But then underneath the water, there's a whole bunch of issues going on. It could be financial, it could be mental, it could be health, it could be anything. Family issues, it could be work, it could be violence, it could be all of the above. Right? So when we're looking at picking out the interests. So when we're going into a collaborating model and we're trying to come to a solution, we want to see what interests both parties have or all parties have. Let's pick out the interests rather than saying, well, not. Okay, well, what do we have in common?
Yeah, you're looking for interests that might be similar, right?
Yeah.
You might be talking about an issue. This is my interest. This is how I see it. And now you're going to give me yours. And you know what? Half the time, it stops there sometimes for people. I didn't realize that we both had the same thing in mind. We're just not getting it out properly to each other.
You're competing for the same thing.
We want our kids we want to be able to parent our kids the same way.
Yeah.
Like, we need to get this out there, right?
Yeah.
So you're identifying the interests of the other person, and this is where you need to slow down and allow the other person, right?
Yes.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And often I think this part gets skipped.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
This is we forget that part. We go right into brainstorming in a sense, right? So without identifying the interests of everyone involved. And
understanding and validating.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And getting all that out there. Getting all your cards on the table basically around the issue. Right? And feeling that, okay, I feel like you've understood me. You've heard me. I feel really good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling good. Okay, so now we're going to brainstorm some solutions.
Yeah.
That's the next step, right? In a conversation.
Yeah.
You're right. When you're brainstorming, you're not judging the solutions yet.
No.
Right?
Because just get all the answers, all your thoughts on board.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if someone will say, oh, well, that doesn't work. No, it doesn't matter. We're just getting our thoughts on, right?
Yeah.
We're just, all the thoughts come out.
I see this in class a lot. They're judging, oh, I don't think it's okay to do that. It's just not the right time. When you're brainstorming, you just put it all out there. Right? Put all your ideas, all your solutions, all your things, the way you think things might work or how you see it out on paper.
Yeah.
Right?
Because what you may think is a silly idea could open up a bright idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're trying to get out all the ideas without comment or commitment yet. You're not there yet.
No.
Right?
We're not making comments less stupid or something like that.
Because that would be
that?
A what?
A minimizing, a block.
Yes.
It'd be a block to communication, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would you say that? Right?
If you're judging, minimizing, criticizing, ignoring the ideas of the other person, you're blocking down that communication.
Yeah.
Right? After we brainstorm, then we start to evaluate. Here's where things don't always, you have to be very, can be hard. Can be tough, right?
Like, we may make it sound easy right now, and like we have it all together, but we're not perfect.
It's hard. It's hard in the evaluating, because you have to be open-minded to the other person's evaluations of your ideas.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They give us some tips here. What are some of the tips I got here? This is some of the tips. Let's fine-tune some of the suggestions that we've each made. So let's fine-tune some of the options.
Okay, so process of elimination.
Yeah, let's move some of the ones that we can agree that wouldn't work. Right? Start there, and then you get down to like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where you have to kind of go back and forth onto interests and why you think this would work and why you see it that way. And it can be emotionally charged when you're evaluating options.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. Like when you think of it, especially in the military environment, your postings, for example, right? When people are moving and all the time where the other spouse has to start fresh, right? Sometimes people have a career that they have started that they may not want to leave. So what are the options here, right? That's a hard conversation to have, really, when you think of it, right?
Yeah. In the evaluation process, remember, this is a collaborative, interest-based communication conversation. So what does that mean? That means that you want to pick out the options that best suit everyone's interests and that people have agreed upon as being the one that is going to be how we're going to solve this issue.
Not forced upon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So everybody's agreeing.
Yeah. You can almost even take a step back and say, okay, if this is the issue, if this is the solution, Ginette, do you feel like you had an opportunity to get out everything that you wanted to tell me? Do you feel understood? Do you feel like everything is out there for you?
And do you have anything else to add?
Do you have anything else to add? Right?
At this point, I don't.
Yeah.
Or I may.
Or your interest's been met here. Do you think your interests are going to be met here? Right?
Yeah.
And I added something to this, but we'll get there when we go there. agreement and closure, okay, is the next piece. So we've agreed on this is how we're going to do this. Let's set a time frame on how long we want this to go on for.
So, okay, so next week, let's reevaluate.
Yeah.
At Friday at noon.
Yeah.
For example.
It might be written, it might be verbal. We agree that I'm going to shovel and you're going to cook breakfast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we'll try that for now.
Yeah.
Right?
It can be day by day, week by week, month by month, year, whatever works for you and your situation.
Now, I added something in here that people don't always do. I added follow-up.
Follow-up.
I feel like you should be following up with people and allow people to follow up with you.
Yeah.
Because if you've agreed on something and it's not working for you, you should have permission to bring that up to the other person.
It's true.
Like, I'm struggling with this. Or, let's follow up in a week and see how things are going. And if it's working for both of us, we'll carry on with what we've decided.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So adding in a follow-up in there is really important, I think.
Yeah. And it shows that you care.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That they care.
And that you want it to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that you have their interests at heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wouldn't it be so simple if we all work like that?
It works sometimes though. Like we've tried it. You've tried it with your family.
Yeah.
I've tried it.
Yeah.
We've done it at work.
Mm-hmm.
A few times.
Yeah.
Strategic planning.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. But remember that when you're learning a new skill, it's easy to, and it's common to fall back into old patterns and behaviors.
Yeah.
We kind of refer that to our default browser when we think of it, right? So how you were brought up and stuff like that.
So try some of these tools. Yeah. Right? Give them a whirl. See how they work. We have an intercom. We're hoping to get back to in-person classes, hopefully mid-February. So we'll put our health promotion schedule on Facebook for you.
Yeah.
Next week we got another table talk coming up, part 1 and 2.
And it will be on the subject of substance use disorder.
Right? And we'll be talking about alcohol, other drugs,
gaming, gambling,
and cannabis next week. And we'll talk a little bit about safety, harm reduction around that.
Yeah.
We know that 40% sales in alcohol is up.
Have gone up.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed our little chat this morning, and please reach out if you have any questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Let us know what you want to hear from us, how you want our information given to you.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for ideas.
Yeah. Any topic that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Want us to talk about for our next table talks.
All right.
Have
Take
a good
care,
day.
14 Wing.
Bye.
Bye.